I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, we'll take a moment of silence. It's a good time to silence your cell phones. Thank you very much. And Dr. Freeman, it looks like it's turned over to you for review of the monitoring reports.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, people here in attendance and online. This evening, we're going to go over the governing board's annual goals. The data have been collected by staff to report back on our progress and whatever some of our accomplishments and challenges might be. The report is similar to last year in that each of the guiding principles represent a chapter. I'll do a brief introduction, and the executive team will take turns going through the data for you. I did want to note that feedback from the board we had last time was that people liked the length and the format, and so we've stayed with the format of last year, but we have added more information, and some of that is because of a lot of unique or incredible things that happened in the last school year. But we're not going to address every line of every page. So staff will be hitting what they think are highlights and points of interest for the board or the community, and you will have more information here at your fingertips if it generates questions for you or anything like that. We are really intending this to be a good first draft after feedback tonight. We'll do some polishing up of this report before it gets into published form and try to put together a summary for the November meeting. We have probably some things that are highlights that are threads through the whole report. Fiscal year 23 that we're reporting on was the first year since the pandemic. We went all the way through the year without quarantining or requiring masks or people to stay home or anything. In FY22, we still had some mitigation responses. We had good results with staff returning in fiscal 23, and we were working hard on innovations for this year, whether it be foreign students or foreign teachers, or unique staffing model at Littleton, or international teachers working with the teacher pipeline. All of those things underway to help address the teacher shortage, and some of that will be addressed tonight, but some of it, really, the accomplishments of that are being, the fruit of that's being taken this year, so a lot of that will end up in next year's report. We did significant construction efforts at Littleton Elementary and in the Head Start facility at the Littleton STEM Academy, and those really were opening this year, but a lot of that work in construction to build capacity for the school district happened last year. We expanded pre-K and some of our highly qualified early learning opportunities, and we were able to finally get targeted goals together aligned throughout the district, differentiated by school. So those are some of the highlights. There's a lot more information in this report. In the introduction, I talk a little bit about some of the historical background and probably hit more heavily on the pandemic than in years before, because what's happened is the pandemic has influenced a lot of other things since it ended, especially attendance, other policy, and programs. The concept of focus schools is discussed because that has continued to develop and evolve, and we'll hear more about that. The guiding principles and the goals of the governing board in the school district weren't changed or updated for fiscal year 23. Those are listed and discussed a little bit in the introduction. about the times in history when the board has made adjustment to those. And that's really happened 2 or 3 times since the original work done by the board in 2006. The monitoring cycle is reviewed again in the chapter, and it explains the articulation between the work of governance and the work of administration. We are in the final phase of the fiscal 23. What?
Should we display the chapter on the screen so we can follow along?
What is up there?
Is the introduction.
The introduction. Oh, you mean like open the PDF?
Are we opening the PDF?
I guess we should open the PDF.
Yeah, I was a little lost myself.
All right.
Sorry, let's cover now.
Thank
I
you.
just found the monitoring cycle and
I just noticed they were trying to find where you are.
All right. I was trying to just speak clearly and coherently.
Page 3.
Chapter 0.
Chapter 0 is the introduction. Sorry, I thought they went over all of that. Next page. Acknowledgements and then format. Thank you. Guiding principles and goals. And finally, the monitoring cycle. Thank you, all. All right, the monitoring cycle is made up of 2 components, the policy component and the administrative component. This cycle, the one that's extended, starts in the fall with October and November as the board collects information from the prior fiscal year. So in this case, you will be working off of the evaluation data happened a year ago to set this year in motion. Once this is completed in the spring, you'll be setting the fiscal 25 year in motion. While that work is happening, the administration is implementing the school year from the work you did in the fall and the spring. And so we are in the process right now of implementing fiscal 24. We're going to review 23, and when we come back from winter break, the board will start to work on laying the groundwork for fiscal 25. You'll hear a lot about people talking about long-range planning. What we do is a look back and look ahead. One example would be we have an override election for M&O this year. We do that every 4 years. We've always passed that. If for any reason it would fail, we would have a 5th year to run that election before we had to start to reduce program. But next year we're scheduled to renew our capital override election. So we have a series of elections we need to run constantly in order to maintain the resource level that the district currently has. Most people who had 10-year and 20-year plans didn't have the COVID pandemic in the right year. A lot of them missed the walkout altogether or the governor's 20 by 20 plan. Since we have to be so responsive to the legislature, long-range planning beyond that would mean we'd need the legislature to do a long-range plan as well. Some of the challenges, of course, come from when the legislature eliminates the COLA, shifts from prior year to current year, and all the other changes that we've had to adapt to over time. One of the things that has been a challenge for us is tracking enrollment. Enrollment's up and down all over our school district and the state. I talked to one superintendent yesterday who said they've enrolled 600 kids this year and their enrollment is down. And a lot of that has to do with the impact less so of charters but vouchers and them being universal and people exercising other options, which means planning for enrollment has become really challenging this year for most school districts. There is in that last page of the introduction some description of some of the things that have created challenges for the management team that often result in recommendations to the board and how we can navigate through those. And that pretty much sums up the summary. When we get into the chapters, there's going to be more detailed numbers, but there's also some anecdotal information about things that have happened because there's so many things that are new. We don't have 3, 4, or 5-year trends that we can track. If there's no other questions about the organization of the report or how it's put together, then we can move right into Chapter 1, and I believe Dr. Haid is going to walk us through Chapter 1.
Thank you, Dr. Freeman, Madam President, members of the board. Chapter 1 encompasses 3 of the district goals. The district ensures a rigorous, viable, and consistent curriculum for all students. Instruction is differentiated to meet the needs of diverse student population, and students demonstrate growth towards mastery of Arizona academic standards. This particular chapter has a supplement to it, so I'm going to go through the chapter, and at the end we're going to talk about, and there is a PDF of the AASA achievement goals and a summary of the schools and where they were at in relation to the state and the district. And so that particular data is not included in the chapter itself, but I will walk you through the pages to make sure you know where we're at, okay? As I said, Chapter 1 focuses on academic achievement and programs. During the 22-23 school year, we returned to full-time in-person learning while maintaining an online academy option. Many of our other neighbors closed their online academy option. We were fortunate enough to keep ours open, and you'll see later in this chapter that our students really excelled in that area. Arizona continued to struggle nationally when compared to other states, and according to the Annie E. Casey Foundation's annual report, Arizona ranks 45th in the nation in 3 of their 4 measures, and they indicate that Arizona students continue to struggle in the areas of early childhood, reading, and math, and we are going to focus on those areas in this chapter today. Achievement gains stalled this past year when compared to pre-pandemic trends, and national achievement data suggests that roughly 4 months of additional learning support are needed to catch up in reading and math. And of course, it also states that marginalized students remain the furthest from academic recovery, but it also touts the extraordinary efforts of educational institutions across the country in their efforts to mitigate the loss of learning opportunities. State achievement, we're going to break into 2 parts, goals and overall achievement. And so I'd like to bring your attention first to the perceiver data, which is on page 3 and page 4. Parents, students, and teachers agree that adults are helping them. However, agreement dropped for parents, increased for teachers, and remained the same for students. The one thing that we think contributes to this is that as we return to normal, or the post-pandemic normal, we've reestablished expectations for learning, achievement, and communicated with that, trying to balance the need to tell parents the honest, where their students are achieving honestly, but also encouraging students to continue to try, which is sometimes a delicate balance there. So the one great piece of information in the Chapter 1 is that teachers agreement increased by 5%, that they differentiate their instruction to meet the needs of students, and that perceiver data is supported in a later chapter, Chapter 4, when it talks about their supports and why they like working at Littleton. One of the biggest differences you can begin to see on page 5 is we had the establishment and alignment of common goals. Now, we've always had goals. Schools have created their goals through a fishbone activity, a comprehensive needs assessment. In the last few years, you've seen those in their integrated action plan overviews that they've presented to the board. But this year, those goals were under the umbrella of 3 of the district principals. Those principals were targeted by the superintendent, the schools, and also the staff. Those 3 principles were Principle 2, Effective Teachers and Instruction, which was broken up into primary literacy and 4-8 math. Principle 3, effective organization of time, which focused on professional learning communities, which is typically done on Wednesdays for early release along with professional development. And Principle 6, family and community engagement. If you turn to page 6, you will see a graph that says FastBridge proficiency levels. What that piece of data represents is the darker blue is where students were at the beginning of the year. They scored in high risk, some risk, and low risk. Low risk is actually not risk, but it means that they are where they need to be and they are ready to learn the appropriate material at the grade level. So while it may look like you want to decrease all of those, you actually want to decrease the high and some risk and move them over to the low risk, which the state deems as proficient. So our goal for this year was to decrease the percentage of high and some risk, but increase the low risk by 10%, and we did that. We decreased high and some risk by 5% and increased low risk by 10%, which means that there was an increase in students who were ready to receive instruction at the end of the year more than at the beginning of the year. If you turn the page, we'll take a look at ELA, our ELA goal, which we used for grades 3 through 8, on Lexile levels for our program Achieve 3000, which also differentiates instruction to meet students' individual needs, but also measures growth and success 3 times per year. You can see from that graph, the pre, the interim, and the post-test is basically the beginning, the middle, and the end of the year. And our goal was to increase Lexile levels by 10%. The overarching line at the top is where nationally students are expected to be, and the bars below represent where our students are in each of the grade levels. Our goal was to increase by 10% or more, and our average district increase was 15% last year. If you turn the page on page 8, we're going to talk a little bit about our mathematic goals. So K-5 and 6-8, we used a supplemental resource approved by the board called Dreambox. We used that to differentiate instruction for students and to measure success. For grades K through 5, we set a target for their weekly completion rate to be greater than 3.9 lessons per week, which basically means an average of an hour of instruction on a computer-based program. And we actually achieved 4.68 lessons per week. The next pages 6 through 8, our goal was to achieve 4.4 lessons per week or higher, and we made our goal of 4.41. Very close, still made it. On page 10, this data is actually under review at this current time. Right up until this time, the state board approved the cut scores for letter grades for schools across the state of Arizona. Prior to this morning, we believed we had 2 A's, 5 B's, 1 C, and 0 D's or F's, raising our letter grade point average from 3.0 to 3.125. This morning, we learned that there's a discrepancy in one of our schools that received an A, and it's currently under protest, but that's not what I'm, appeal, sorry. It's currently under appeal, and so we'll be bringing that information to you. Hopefully, we'll make a good argument. Dr. Freeman's really good at helping us with that. I'm going to flip you over to page 12 before I move to the supplemental material. I want to talk a little bit about our early childhood opportunities. The prior year, you heard that we received the High Quality Early Learning Grant, HQEL, and last year it was put into action. We were able to add 3 additional classrooms to our existing 6 preschool classrooms, and 3 that Head Start has on our campuses. We renamed the program. Our existing preschool rooms had students identified through the child find process that needed additional assistance. And we also worked to integrate model students as space allowed, and there were scholarships available for those students. We renamed that program the Sparks because it's on the Firebirds campus, and our new HQEL program is the Flames, and those are 4-year-olds getting ready for kindergarten so that they can blossom into Firebirds. And so this year we had the Sparks, the Flames, the Firebirds, and we serviced 197 students and had nearly 200 students on our waiting list at any given time. So we're constantly looking for additional opportunities to grow our early learning programs. And I would like Mr. Verrill, if he will switch out of this, there is a PowerPoint right there he's got. And so Mr. DeLessio put our proficiency rates against those of the Tolleson feeder districts along with the city of Avondale, or the Avondale Elementary School District. So let me talk a little bit through what these graphs look like. So the first one is our ELA proficiency. This represents our proficiency rates of the Tolleson region, including a breakdown of Avondale Elementary. The gray box included within the graph represents Avondale Elementary School District as a whole, and that is the first line is the state where it says 42, but the 39 is Avondale Elementary as a whole. And then we broke them into East Side, West Side districts, which are basically City of Avondale and City of Goodyear. So City of Goodyear is your 44, and City of Avondale is 25, which shows you there's quite a discrepancy between their achievement across the district and what the district score is as a whole. When comparing Littleton to the other Tolleson feeder districts, Littleton is tied for second with Pendergast. The data includes scores from the online academy for the first year, and when comparing district data with state data, Littleton closed the achievement gap by 1 point. In summarizing our grade levels, Littleton Online Academy outperformed the state by 9 points in third grade. This is ELA. Other highlights in grade 3 include Estrella Vista, Littleton, and Tres Rios improving the percent passing over previous year. Fine Arts fourth graders increased their passing rate to come within 1 point of the state average, while Littleton, Quinton, and Tres Rios also increased their percentage of students who achieved proficiency. Grade 5, Littleton Online outperformed the state by 6 points, and 3 other schools, Collier, Fine Arts, and Littleton, increased their percent passing. In 6th grade, Littleton Online was the highest performing school and was just shy of the state average by 2 points, and Collier, Country Place, Estrella Vista, and Fine Arts all increased proficiency from the prior year. The Online Academy outperformed the state again in 7th grade by 8 points, and Fine Arts increased their percentage passing by 3%. 8th graders online outperformed the state by 20 points. Fine Arts and Littleton also increased their percent passing over the prior year. I'll stop there if you have any questions about ELA because my math is about that long.
I have a comment. So when you talk
Absolutely.
about our line, there, yeah. That's okay. No worries. On the online academy, it appears to do better, right? Do you have a theory why that is versus being on campus?
Madam President, members of the board, at any given time, there were about 55 students, I believe, is that right, Mrs. Garrison, in our online academy, and it was targeted specifically for learners who wanted small group, but also our academy online is completely different from others like Primavera or other online pieces because our students interact with certified teachers every single day and also complete their learning logs to turn into the state. So our minutes far exceed any of the minimum requirements by the state. So my personal belief is that it's a combination of learners being in the right place and achieving the instruction that they need to achieve, that they need to receive.
What's the average classroom size on an online? I know it's 55, but what's average on is it 5, 6, 10?
Six to
Also very
16 to
small.
18. 16 to 18.
Very small.
Very small.
Thank you.
Yes. Anything else for ELA?
Yeah, so just to because I think all the colors are kind of, I'm seeing them all the same. I don't know if it's just for me. So just to make sure that Pendergast and Littleton are the two blues, and then Fowler, Union are behind.
Mr. Sanaceris, members of the board, yes, that's correct. The 30 number is Tolleson Elementary. I'll talk a little bit about why I believe there's a difference there a little later. But the 28s are Littleton and Pendergast, and then the 21 would be Fowler, and the 20 is Union. Thank you for your question. All right, moving on to the next slide for math. The graph here is represented in the same way as ELA, with Tolleson feeder districts in blue and Avondale schools in gray. You should notice again that the achievement between the two cities is significant. Littleton ranked third in proficiency in the feeder system, and here's a summary of our results. The Littleton STEM Academy outperformed the state in third grade math by 3%, with Trace Rios lagging behind the state by just 1 point. Country Place and Estrella Vista also made positive gains from previous years. In fourth grade, Country Place was just 3 points from achieving the same proficiency rate as the state, and Littleton STEM also moved in a positive direction. Grade 5 struggled the most across the district, with Littleton STEM increasing proficiency by 6 points, and Fine Arts and Quinton also making positive gains. Sixth grade, however, was the shining star, with 6 schools either improving or holding their percent passing. Quinton STEM Academy outperformed the state by 4%, and Collier and Littleton STEM increased proficiency rates by double digits. The district overall increased their proficiency by 4%, while the state remained the same. 7th and 8th grades across the district struggled the most, with 50% of our teachers not meeting state certification requirements. Fine Arts, Littleton STEM, and Trace Rio show positive gains for 7th graders. And 8th graders in the online academy outperformed the state by 20 points again, and Collier came within 1 point of matching the state. Fine Arts and Littleton STEM also made some positive gains. Overall, we have some bright spots and some areas to continue to work on, but as you can see, the goals that we set for reading and math, along with our professional development and targeting differentiated instruction for our students, matched up with our proficiency rates. While they're not as high as we'd like them to be, we feel like we're making some good gains. And when comparing regional data, teacher experience rates line up with proficiency rates. Tolleson Elementary has the highest teacher experience rate, with Pendergast coming in second and Littleton coming in third. And if you have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer those with the math or overall about Chapter 1 before I go in.
I just have one quick question.
Absolutely.
If Tolleson is the highest in terms of, are you talking teacher retention?
Madam President, no, actually years of teaching experience. So if their average is 14.6 and ours is 11.2.
They recruit, is there turnover in that, or is that steady as she goes? I mean, they've been there for, however many years?
It looks from the state data that I can see is that they retain their teachers, who a lot of them live in that community, but their new teacher percentage is increasing just like the rest of us. But our teacher experience, years of experience, is actually growing slightly. So that's a bonus for us. I think
It's because they live in the community. That's one of the key indicators why they stay there?
that is my thought, and that is also, as we'll talk about in Chapter 4, the teacher pipeline. And they were the first district to jump on board with NAU, and then we came on second. Gotcha. But they have a lot of people in their community that are really looking for opportunities, and that does help them.
Interesting. Thank you.
Yes.
Oh, no, I have.
Oh, wait, one.
Yes.
So I think the grant thing is amazing. I just wanted to know so I was reading a little bit through, and this may be something Ryan can answer, but is that just a temporary grant, or is that a long-term grant? Because I know it says 2 years, so I know that's fully funding.
Member Sanaceris, is that the early childhood grant?
Yeah.
It is for 2 years. Maybe Dr. Freeman can add some light. He's the legislative guru. That I believe that was an outgoing initiative by one of our legislators.
Yeah, anything, we're really concerned about that because I'm sure you're aware what the state budget situation is today. So we've been advocating for early childhood funds for a long time and struggled with getting that through the legislature. The last couple sessions have been unique, but now, because of all of the special project spending in the last session, the state's appearing to be a little bit upside down. So we're going to have to work to secure other funding sources. One of the issues the state has had, because it funded preschool so poorly, is we couldn't get federal matches. And so that's a place where we're going to look. That will depend a lot on what happens in the House and with the speaker's race. Right now, the House proposal on the budget is to eliminate Title II and to reduce Title I and to reduce special ed funding. The Senate's pretty much maintains a status quo for the Department of Ed's budget going forward, assuming they make their way through a shutdown. So politics be what they may, early childhood resources seem to be in peril again. We made a little headway. It seems like we get 2 steps forward and 3 steps back, but we're not, like I said in the introduction, able to plan too far ahead on those grant funds.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. Moving on to Chapter 2. Chapter 2 is centered around a safe and orderly environment, covers district goals 4 and 5. A safe learning and working environment is created and maintained for students, staff, and community, and students demonstrate appropriate social behavior, common courtesy, and good citizenship. So while we as the district strive to have a safe and orderly environment where we expect everyone to demonstrate appropriate social behaviors, common courtesy, and good citizenship, we've had a little bit of struggle. We have student management systems in place, and we also have a system for holding adults accountable in our own district that we've had in place for quite some time. So in this chapter, I've broken safety down into 3 major areas: transportation, crisis management, and student and staff well-being. If we could flip to page 3, where our 3 and 4, where our perceiver data is, this is some further evidence that we do struggle with social norms and acceptable behavior, as we see basically across the state, across the nation, across the world. So there was a significant drop in teacher perception of students demonstrating appropriate social behavior, common courtesy, and good citizenship. And there was a 7% drop in student perceptions of students in school being responsible and respectful to everyone. So those are 2 areas of focus that we are working on this year as we reviewed this perceiver data. If I could have you turn to page 6, I wanted to highlight one of the pieces that was implemented last year in transportation called our Register to Ride program. For the first time, we've asked families to request transportation if they needed it. They were then routed for the school year, but prior to this practice, all eligible riders were routed. And this process has made improvements to support transportation, helped us identify that many eligible students did not need to ride a bus, and so it helped us be more efficient. A team of leaders met to develop timelines, training materials, and communications to alert families and support the use of our parent portal to collect the requests. And Register to Ride was an effort to control bus capacity and prepare for the driver shortages. Second, I'd like to point out we had some security camera upgrades. From the Department of Justice, we received a grant that allowed us to install upgraded video servers at all 7 schools, significantly increasing storage capacity and improving the overall user experience when accessing live feeds or retrieving past video footage for investigative purposes. The Collier campus underwent a complete camera replacement. I believe they were the first school to get cameras, right? And to ensure that they have a comprehensive exterior coverage for enhanced surveillance. On page 8, I'd like to talk about our safety partners, as we did spend a lot of time on safety last year. We partnered with City of Avondale Police Department and City of Phoenix Police Department. Also, Our safety committee worked in collaboration with the two departments. Officer Long from the Avondale Police Department visited each school site, including the district, and provided recommendations on safety and security. Mr. French leads the safety committee for the district, and he has worked closely to take Officer Long's recommendations along with helping us match what's feasible in the school setting as opposed to what's feasible in the police setting, which sometimes doesn't match, as you can imagine. We were able to review the report and invite Officer Long to present his findings to the administrative team during a staff meeting. And we look forward to continuing these partnerships and expanding the safety training for our staff. On that same page, you will see suspension data, which you receive in the board update every week. I think it's important to note that during the 22-23 school year, there was an increase in drug, marijuana, and/or marijuana vape possession, sale, distribution, and/or usage, and it can be attributed to the legalization of marijuana and the ready availability of it. School leaders adopted a variety of progressive disciplinary approaches, which included the alternative to suspension and the Fresh Start programs, in an effort to reduce serious behaviors such as drug infractions and severe defiance disruption prior to recommending a long-term suspension. This data aligns with some of the social norms and expectations that you see in the perceiver data earlier. On page 10, I'd like to point out that the character development that we have used in the district plays an important piece in the multi-tiered system of support for our students, because behaviors and citizenship plays a role in the whole picture of a child's academic achievement. One of the things that we were able to do last year, as you flip to page 11, is we had a social worker at every campus to support our students. So we were fortunate to have one on each campus through the use of both local and grant funds. And school leadership teams and social workers were able to identify and provide supports to students who were struggling with their well-being. We used a program called SABRS, which is the Social, Academic, and Emotional Behavior Risk Screener, for screening all students and identifying those who were at risk for behavior problems. Throughout the course of the year, about 150 students were classified as high risk, and every student was contacted by a social worker and put on a plan to help them with their struggles. In addition, staff had some well-being issues, and so we worked with our EAP program and our health benefits program so that staff would have some place to reach out and get some assistance with the things that they're struggling with. And that graph is actually on the previous page. Sorry, I got my pages mixed up as I was flipping. If you have any questions about Chapter 2, I'd be happy to answer those for you. Otherwise, I will send it over to Mrs. Garrison for Chapter 3. Mr. Sanceris.
Oh, well, first of all, thank you, Lisa. You've been doing an amazing job so far.
Oh, thank you.
Looking at the suspension data for the number of days students have been days missed due to suspensions, just going to the one under, just for a little clarification, says a majority of suspensions occurred in 6th through 8th grade band. Is that like actual
6th, 7th, and
band?
8th grade. Yes, it's a grade band
Oh,
that
band.
encompasses band.
Okay.
Grade band. Yes.
Okay, I just really need a clarification.
Sorry.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Probably so. We'll circle that, and that's a great.
I was concerned. I was like,
yes. Yes.
Okay.
Those troublemakers. No.
Yeah.
Says yes.
And then, well, thank you for that. And then the character development for the student agency committee.
Yes.
Has there been? I know it has a makeup of just staff members, but is there a way we could include maybe 1 or 2 middle schoolers to be involved in that? Because I know if we're trying to have a committee that's developed to working on the character of students, maybe have students involved in that process, whether it's a 7th or 8th grader. I think that's just something the recommendation from from
Thank
me. I'd
you,
like to see
Mr. Senaceris. I had this highlighted and didn't address it, but as you know, that we have a superintendent's advisory committee that students meet with the superintendent, and we often have questions that are addressed to them, and they provide input. And so that is a way for their voice to be heard, but we can definitely take that under advisement. Yes. Mrs. Garrison.
Thank you, Madam President, Governing Board. Chapter 3 takes a look at Principle 3, families as partners. In this section, there are two goals. One is to have families as meaningful partners with the schools to support the success of their children. And the other is about effective and communication, professional and courteous communication between the home and school. The strategies listed on the very first page include monitoring how parents monitor progress of their children, and if they make program selections, or as we call it, choose a school each year. We also look at two-way communication, being timely and effective, and the work of the parent groups that intentionally meet to support engagement. Of course, great customer service is at the heart of what we do, so we continue to seek feedback regarding service from our stakeholders. Recognizing the important role that parents play in the success of their children led to continued efforts to build family partnerships. We continue to blend strategies that have stood the test of time, and of course, we learned a whole bunch of new strategies and developed them during the pandemic. In this chapter, you will see indicators that we have challenges keeping our families engaged along with some of our successes. If you'll first go to page 2, and Jim, I'm going to try hard to do that, so just snap or something if I don't. The perceiver data showed a 6% increase in agreement from teachers that families stayed involved. That is significant because it puts us within 3 points of our all-time high and almost 34 points higher than our lowest reported rate of agreement from our teachers over the past 16 years. There was a 12% increase in families reporting feeling welcome when they entered the front office. I attribute that increase due to us being able to settle into our post-pandemic new normal. Plexi came down, masks came off, people could come in. People were welcomed back into the building, events were in person, and student performances were live once again. This data is going in a positive direction, but we still have a ways to go to have it return to our all-time high, if you look at that chart, of 96% agreement. So we'll keep reaching. There was a slight drop in students saying they heard their families say good things about the schools, but again, the current year data is well above the lowest ratings we have seen over the years. At our lowest data point, we had a 48% agreement, and last year we had 77%. Flipping to page 4. On the top of the next page, you'll see a chart of logins into Parent View, our parent portal. During the 22-23 school year, the district tracked an all-time high of 108,414 entries into the parent portal, and you'll see 4 years of data up there. This was encouraging to note because we put much effort into giving parents more reasons to log in. In the portal, parents are always asked to monitor grades and attendance, but we were not satisfied in the engagement we were seeing. My office worked with other departments to develop additional reasons, and throughout the year, we communicated new initiatives, constantly trying to give parents more and more reasons to go there. We started with targeted communications with activation instructions because we can tell in the system parents who have never logged in. So we were targeting those parents to get them to make sure that they knew how. We used a dedicated email address for questions. We trained people in front offices across the districts to support, so no matter who answered the phone, they would know how to help them. We placed the parent-student handbook and report card in the portal. We were doing that during the pandemic, and we've continued to do that. And teachers also used email and/or Remind to send parents information about academic progress. The portal was now used to monitor attendance and grades and update demographic information. Then what we figured out next was how to gather medical information from our families, including permission for over-the-counter medications. Selecting a school during school choice could now be tracked and entered through the portal as well. Other contributing factors to our increase in usage are our online academy parents enter minutes. They do attendance a little bit different than our regular students. They have to enter minutes per week that students participate. So we put the place for them to enter those minutes in the parent portal, forcing them to weekly log their minutes. Our families eligible for transportation, as Dr. Hayes suggested, registered through the portal to be routed, when we called that program the Register to Ride. And again, we were able to put a communication plan around that to let people know. And we're now in year 3 of that. So last year would have been year 2. Another new noteworthy initiative was inviting all families to use the portal to register for summer school. Now, as you're well aware, summer school attendance over the last 2 years has been amazing. And so we invited all parents to use the portal to go ahead and request one of those seats. So that meant parents did not have to complete paperwork and could complete the registration from anywhere at any time. It also meant that now we could use the student information system just like we do throughout the year without affecting any of the data going to the state, but we could see all the students' demographic information and build schedules for summer school and take attendance and all the things that we could normally do throughout the year. So that was new last year, and that was a big win for us. Really supported the board goal of being effective and efficient. Staff was pretty excited about this new initiative, so I assume that we will continue doing this for years to come when we have summer school. So although much of the data looks encouraging, we still struggled with hundreds of parents who did not log in to this portal regularly or even at all. So we'll continue to seek to understand why some of the parents are disengaged. We do believe that removing language barriers and building relationships, especially if there has been a negative past experience, will help improve engagement, because decades of research shows that family and parent involvement leads to better outcome for students. That's no surprise to us. To further support this concept, on this same page going down a little bit, research shows that students with involved parents have a 98% average school attendance rate, which contributes significantly to academic achievement. High attendance rate has a major impact on a child's overall success. And unfortunately, following the pandemic, schools across the nation saw an increase in chronic absenteeism, and Littleton was no exception. 32% of the students that we served last year were chronically absent. Pre-pandemic, it was 1 in 6 students. Post-pandemic, it was 1 in 3. So on page 4, I have described the risks of poor attendance and would be preaching to the choir to go over all of them here. I will say the good news is that it's never too late. When attendance improves, so does achievement. And last summer, the leadership team worked diligently to understand our attendance data and design interventions to raise awareness and improve attendance to support achievement. And I look forward to seeing positive shifts in the attendance data next time I report. If you flip to page 5, our school choice initiative is not new, but the one thing that I want to point out, if you look at the data, it shows a decline in families exercising their right to select a school during the school choice window. I point this out because I think this is another indicator of our parents not engaging and something for our leaders to be aware of. We'll continue to use multiple strategies in the future to keep our families aware of program options. They have right here in their public schools, reminding them that there is no need to shop elsewhere. We have plenty of choice right here in the Littleton district. There are some interesting things noted on pages 5, 6, and 7 about additional communication strategies, but I'm going to ask you to flip to 7 right now, where you'll see another new initiative mentioned. The district is always interested in improving customer service internally and externally. Public office employees met bi-weekly throughout the school year to look at standard operating procedures and best practices. We found many topics to revisit and reboot. The district used the services of secret shoppers. The secret shoppers were given questions and scenarios. They tracked responses, experiences, feeling tone, and even organization of the offices. They put our front offices to the test. They used a rating system, which helped us determine topics for professional development, as well as to support recognition of outstanding experiences. Now if you go to page 8, each year we track concerns received at the district office. We have had long-standing established procedures, which include working through a process starting closest to where the concern is. The trend is encouraging and could be indicative of processes, as outlined in the student parent handbook, that are working. We typically try to turn people back around to go to where the closest to where the problem originated. And as always, we'll continue to use strategies to strengthen our partnerships with our families. Keeping families informed and actively involved are key to successful schools. If there are no questions, I'll turn the time back to Dr. Haid for chapter 4.
Okay, so for parent view logins, I guess my first question is, you said parents regularly logging in. What is regularly logging in? Because speaking for myself, I think I logged in maybe a few times at the beginning of the year, and I can't tell you the last time I logged in. And I consider myself a fairly active parent, but I'm just curious.
I would hope that parents were logging in, at least bi-weekly each month to check on grades and attendance. We expect our teachers to be entering grades weekly,
Okay.
so it would be a good rule of thumb for parents to check in weekly. Great question.
Okay, so maybe we need to express that to our parents more, because
Excellent.
I mean, I log into Parent View when I'm told to log into Parent View to fill out something, but it's never in my head to go to Parent View to check on my students' grades.
Great comment. Thank you.
And then my other question, or really just an idea, with the student choice, I remember student choice being like this big, fun, exciting thing we did in this room, and like schools got to show off. And I know that we're trying to get parents to do student choice online, but if there's a way to like create a community event about it, even if it's I come in and I hear spiels from the schools and then I go home and log in or something like that to kind of build the excitement.
I love that I see your head shaking. Because Dr. Freeman and Dr. Haid know how excited I get about this. Pre-pandemic, you're right, schools were here, got to come in, and we can definitely return to that and still offer the people who don't want to. I mean, we have seen lines down the street. So I would love to start to plan for that approach to come back and to still give the people, you can make both camps happy that way. Come and learn, talk, and if you don't want to, then the next day you can just go online and do it. I love that you said that.
Because I can express, I have a young person in my home who loves the school he's at, but I think he might be more interested in some of the other programs, but he only knows the school he's at. So.
Dan and I have some work to do. Yes.
I'm just going to echo what Amy said again, because I remember when we first launched it, I was a student, and my mom, it was amazing. I think it was cool to see just the whole community gathered and see the district office just filled with excitement and kids excited to go there to next school. So I think I would love to see that return. So just echoing what Amy said.
Thank you for those comments. Okay, turn it back to Dr. Haid for chapter 4.
I believe this is the last time you hear from me tonight. However, chapter 4 encompasses goals 8 and 9. The district attracts, develops, and retains a highly competent staff, and employees work in a collaborative manner to provide a quality educational experience for all. So creative efforts were made to attract and retain employees across social media and online recruiting sites, because low enrollment in education was already occurring prior to the pandemic, and the pandemic completely shut things down. So we looked for some innovative pathways, excuse me, such as the development of the Grow Your Own partnership with NAU, which I know the award that the district received with NAU and Tolleson L, Mr. French is going to talk about in chapter 6. But we also tried to be innovative with how to compensate our teachers as they created, or they had to take on more responsibilities and work with an increasing number of staff members that had less experience or that were really receiving on-the-job training. And so our split prep loss and class splits, which was piloted in 21-22, received a huge amount of accolades from staff as they continued to do that this year. Also, our PLC structure produced engines of hope and achievement for students and staff work together to give students their best learning environment possible. So I'd like to look at perceiver data on page 2 and page 3. Students continued to believe that their teachers worked well together, which could be aligned to the ongoing implementation of our professional learning community philosophy. We saw an increase in parents believing that teachers are sensitive to cultural and ethnic diversity, which I think is huge in this day and age. The agreement that Littleton is a highly regarded place to work stayed consistent from the previous year. However, we saw an almost 9% increase in agreement that teachers look forward to coming to school each day. 7% of teachers also, their agreement increased in feeling that their opinions and input are valued. So we consistently hear teachers want more time to plan and prepare. However, we saw an increase in 10% from teachers that early release professional development helps them refine their instructional skills and differentiate instruction, which for those of you that are educators in this room is unbelievable because no one can agree. It's sort of like getting a bunch of attorneys together, but anyway. On page 4, I'd like to bring your attention to our teacher retention rates. And while we do struggle with putting appropriately certified teachers in the classroom and with substitutes for when they are gone, our retention rate returned to over 90%, with 93% of our teachers returning for last year. The methodology behind that is that that's the total number of contracts issued to staff that's returning and the number of signed contracts that we received back. This increased by 11% and was higher than the national average, which was reported to be only 84% teacher retention. That was a highlight. We've talked several times about the Grow Your Own program, and that's highlighted on page 5. And then last year, we were planning for this influx of international teachers, and our first partnership was with the Embassy of Spain, which that's the picture on page 5. This was our kickoff for our dual language immersion program that's happening at Lakin right now. And if you haven't had the opportunity to go see those students speak in 2 languages in K1 and 2, please contact Ada and set up a time to go over because it's pretty amazing. They were writing in their journals in Spanish the other day for their science lesson, so it's really impressive. Talked a little bit about appropriately certified teachers, and on page 6 you can see that in the past, pre-pandemic, we were always above 90% for appropriately certified, but last year we dropped to 82%. So this has been a significant change over the course of 5 years, which is the data. However, we exceeded the state, which was only 30% of teachers were appropriately certified. So we were over 50% better than the state. Page 7 highlights non-traditional teaching certificates. There is an annual survey that the Arizona School Personnel Administrative Association puts out, which is the ASPA, along with the Littleton teacher shortage in that graph. We far exceed the success rate of our other districts. And of course, the state is comprised of districts that do better than us and districts that do worse than us. However, we're in the top tier for that. So we exceed the state average with 82% of our teacher positions filled by teachers who hold a standard certificate, and only 13% of our teaching staff holds a non-traditional teaching certificate. So statewide, vacant positions are at 25%, and we only had 5% of our teaching positions unfilled. The piece that I'd like to close with on page 8 is our bus driver incentive that was put into place in Q4 for last year. And then it continues this year as we will bring data from that forward to see if the board wants to continue that. But we'd like to point out that over half of our bus drivers, 54% of them, qualified for this incentive in the Q4, and it did make a difference in our driver attendance. And with that, I would love to answer any questions, or I will pass it back to Mrs. Garrison, and we're just not letting the boys speak tonight.
On my page 3, did we not ask parents if they were satisfied with their children's teacher? Did I miss that? We took that question out. Mine says non-applicable for data.
I think that is, We did see that, and we went to research that. My apologies. Thanks for pointing that out. We will get back to you on that because we don't believe we took it out, but we didn't put that back in. So we will bring that back to you.
Thank you.
Okay, Mrs. Garrison.
Well,
Sorry.
sorry. You're good. You're good. I'm a slow speaker. I moved pretty slow, so I'm sorry. I think the teacher retention increasing from 83 to 90, or 82 to 93 was amazing. So round of applause to our HR staff. But I just think, do you kind of get like a central idea about why 64, like why we're at a 64 for Littleton is a high regarded district where staff members want to work? Do you have like general idea or some things?
Mr. Senaceros, this is always a question that we review. The all-time low for that is 15%. So that was at a time that we were really struggling in the district. But personally, I think it could be the time of year that we ask the question. As people are trying to, wrap up the school year, we ask these questions at the end. I don't think it matches our mid-year survey. Mrs. Garrison, do you remember that?
The mid-year was a little bit higher, but it was all staff.
Yeah, so mid-year is higher. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah. We do a mid-year survey. The mid-year survey was a little bit higher, but we do ask all staff. But I, if I may answer with you, do attribute it to the overall teaching profession, maybe the sentiment. I see my teachers shaking their head. The sentiment of public education and the respect teachers are not getting right now. So I'm not sure it was just about the district, because you're right, it doesn't line up. Why are they staying if they think that? So I'm worried that it's the overall sentiment of the teaching profession.
The 83 year was the year we gave a 10% raise. So compensation does impact morale.
There's that.
I'm not an educator, but I am a student, so I see the other side, but I know what you mean, Sarah, I see the other side.
I just have one clarity. If over 50% of our middle school teachers were not appropriately certified, do you correlate that when you look at the scores? I mean, can you see a correlation to that?
Madam President, members of the board, yes, we absolutely do. We did have one school where we tried an alternative. We put a certified online teacher from another school district. There was a grant for that, and then we put a student manager in there, someone that was going to school for teaching. That didn't work so well. We had tried that in the past, but we thought we'll try it again because it's later. And then the other thing we had is one of our math teachers walked out at one of the 8th grade classes last year, and we were never able to fill the position. So a long-term sub stayed in that room all year. And so that was really unfortunate for our students.
Is that why you equate 7th and 8th test scores not progressively moving forward as much as we would like to see?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And I think last year was the year where we had a meeting discussing how could we appropriately attract highly qualified, certified middle school teachers. And it's, speaking as a past middle school teacher, it's really hard when I can easily go to secondary and have the benefits that come from that.
Yeah, we had, the board will consider each spring. We've had hard-to-fill positions and then extra stipends for middle school content areas. If those need to be bigger, I don't know that increasing them would get more people to come here. I gave the board in their weekly update some salary survey data. And what we saw is the high school union districts, which was Glendale Union, Towson Union, and Phoenix Union, paid on average an exorbitantly higher wage than we did. The unified districts did not. Part of what we attribute that to is we're compensating full-day kindergarten teachers with half-day funding, and the high school people aren't. And the Group A multiplier for 9-12 is higher than for K-8. So we're at some appropriation disadvantages to them. it's always been an issue that middle school teachers thought if they went to high school, it was more prestigious, but now it also compensates them much higher. And I think it is an issue we need to pursue with the legislature, which is full day funding for kindergarten, which would make a difference because we're absorbing that difference across everybody's salary. The other is the board may want to talk in the spring about incentives for hard to fill and if they need to make any adjustments to those and if they think it would help.
It's funny, yesterday I was talking to two teachers. They were both math teachers and trying to recruit them here. They said absolutely, they left elementary. They went to the high school for the money. And it's funny, it just came exactly up. They were math teachers and they had taught third grade, but they were going to teach high school. And also they mentioned the respect of, they felt they got more respect in a high school environment from parents than they did in elementary. So it was an interesting conversation, right in line with this conversation. So it is something to consider.
I think it's Mrs. Garrison. She might have a baseball score update for you.
3-2 Diamondbacks in the top of the 7th. You ready, Jim? Are we on 5? There we go. Madam President, Governing Board, Chapter 5 examines Principle 5, a meaningful, involved community. The Governing Board has 2 goals, which include actively including the community resources and groups in the educational process and actively promoting programs and initiatives in the community. Thank you for allowing me to share a few highlights from this chapter. The perceiver data starts on page 2 and showed an increase in agreement that teachers know where to find information about community resources and that staff is informed. Agreement was again well above, almost double the low point in the data. 86% of parents said that they were informed of programs and initiatives that matched our low point in the data, but I would say that 86 agreement is a pretty high low point. On the next page, page 3, students reporting that they hear good things about activities happening in the school was just over 91%, and 78% of students reported that they hear good things about people in our school. That second one seems like a place for opportunity. Next up on page 3, you will see that we continue to rent out our facilities and have a partnership with the Boys and Girls Club. Both of these initiatives are meant to build the sense of community between schools and home. At the bottom of page 3, you will see technology improvements here at the district office noted. Meeting rooms were upgraded to support hybrid meetings and support active participation. It also expands our ability to work with presenters who may not be available to be here in person. The technology here in this boardroom has been upgraded recently. It's meant to support efficient and transparent board meetings. It was also used for professional development and internal and external group meetings. Because of these upgrades, it's now easier for presenters to present from here, or they can present virtually, and the same is true for the audience. Participants can be in this room or attend virtually from anywhere. Going to page 4, the next thing I want to point out, our parent liaison continued to support families across our community. It's the parent liaison who identifies our families as homeless and connects support to some of our families most in need. During the 22-23 school year, we had 123 students identified as homeless, which is down from the previous years. It is commendable that we secured grant funds and distributed uniforms to 700 students, which is an increase from the prior year. Through partnerships, we delivered early literacy classes and coffee talks. Through the Family Welcome Center, our families were included in back-to-school event at Grand Canyon Community College and continue to work with schools to identify families to participate in holiday events. The parent liaison took the lead on our partnership with the VITA Group, which supported free tax preparation for qualifying families. On page 4, you will also read that the District Art Fair returned to be a live event, and last year was hosted at the Avondale City Hall. Every time I attend the art show, I'm amazed. Huge shout out to our art teachers and young artists. And for everyone now listening, I highly recommend you attend next May. As you can see in the picture on the bottom of page 4, this free event is very well attended. On page 5, You will see that the work of the Littleton Education Foundation continued, and we're so grateful for their support, especially when it comes to opportunities for students to attend signature field trips and the appreciation they extend to our staff. At the bottom of page 5, you will see the updated stats from the VITA program. This is a free tax service offered to qualified members of our community and is a point of pride for the district. Last year, they processed 218 tax returns, saving an estimated $81,550 in tax preparation fees for those who chose to use the service. In just the last 3 years, they have processed over $1 million of state and federal returns for our families and employees. I have included on the chart a few things I thought you might find interesting. You will see the number of returns completed for those over the age of 60, the number of households with a family income of less than 60,000, and the number of volunteers and the total number of hours they clocked. They do this without getting paid. I find it so encouraging that 13 people volunteered for 381 hours right here in our Family Welcome Center simply to provide service for others. On page 7, you will find a narrative about Dr. Freeman's civic engagement from last year. Our superintendent continued to advocate for public education. He frequently attended community events and advocated for issues he believes are good for kids. You will see samples of ways he served. His interest in workforce development is noteworthy, especially at the elementary level, and his commitment to working with our legislators is another indicator of his commitment. And this just in, I'm going to go off script a little bit here because we usually don't include current things in, and Amy knows where I'm going. You won't find it in the book. But just yesterday, Dr. Freeman was awarded the Arizona State Superintendent of the Year, and he will now go on to complete nationally. We typically don't include things that happen right now in this monitoring report, but I just could not sit on this for the next year. I could not. I heard you guys talking about it, but for our big audience out here and for our people listening, I wanted everyone to know that he received that great honor. Please turn to page 8. The work of our public information officer is evident throughout chapter 3 and previously discussed as well as this one. Our PIO, as we call him, worked closely with the superintendent's office to cultivate relationships with local media, law enforcement, and various organizations. He maintained a survey schedule to solicit feedback from our stakeholders. He headed up the social media, marketing and branding efforts. He works with the administrative team to provide opportunities for parents to send and receive information, and he's a major player in the efforts to build a strong sense of community. There are some Facebook stats here. Keep flipping. I want to close with Digital Learning Day on page 9. Last year was our 9th annual Digital Learning Day, reaffirming our dedication to seamlessly integrating technology into our classrooms. This annual event gives our students the opportunity to showcase a diverse array of technology, and last year, among our esteemed guests was Governor Katie Hobbs. Thanks to an invitation from our technology integration specialist, Araceli Vasquez, once the security details were covered, Governor Hobbs not only attended but addressed the audience prior to the students demonstrating how technology is a conduit for inspired and empowered learning. Any questions on this chapter?
Not a question, just a comment. Well, first of all, I think it's amazing work. All this is amazing work. For the 123 students, do we have like a specific person or someone who like monitors their situation? Just
The 120.
yeah, the 100.
McKinney Vento. Member Senaceros, yes. The parent liaison is there's a dedicated person, it's required in each district, who oversees support that they may need, keeps tabs on them, watches their attendance, makes sure that they have uniforms, and works really in close connection with the social workers and the school administration to be the conduit, if you will, the connector when they need services beyond what we can do.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. And then just a shout out to Dan, because I think Dan's been doing amazing work this year, and I look forward to the more work that he's going to do.
Thank you. So now, should we let the boys talk? I will turn it over to Mr. French for Chapter 6.
Oh no, did I hear you groan? President Reyes, members of the governing board, Chapter 6 of the monitoring report deals with Principle 6, which is highly effective organization. Chapter 6 includes District Goal 12, which is leadership and core values are modeled and monitored at all levels. Goal 13, the district effectively aligns people and programs to match the needs and resources of our growing organization. And Goal 14, which is people and programs are recognized for their excellence. The management team used 10 strategies to interpret this goal, and they are listed on the first page of Chapter 6. Page 2 provides a management observation analysis of last year with regards to maintaining a highly effective organization. There is analysis of the programs the district utilizes to train staff in leadership, funding the district received, and notable projects started in this fiscal year, as well as how the district recognized students and staff for the amazing work they do daily. FY23 saw the district expand programs and saw continued access to the large amount of federal dollars since COVID. The district closed out the ESSER 1 and 2 funding and was able to make large investments in maintaining the continuity of district operations, programs, and staff. ESSER 3 is available to the district until September of 24, and the district will continue to access those funds until the grant is closed out. Page 3 and 4 have the annual perceiver data that accompany this report each year. The data is broken down into information the district has received from teachers, students, and parents. The district saw strong gains and positive responses from teachers, with 3 of the 5 questions having higher agreement than the prior year, and all questions having higher agreement than the mean. The student questions, adults in our school encourage us to do work together towards a common goal, was 90%, which was slightly lower than last year, but significantly higher than the mean of 81.2. The parent perceiver data was lower in all areas except my child's school helps him or her feel successful, which saw an increase in agreement of 1.5%. The question of opportunity was, I feel my child's school is effectively managed at 80.2% agreement. This was lower than prior year at 86.9 and the mean of 85. The district is working on creating consistency in the leadership positions at the schools to help bolster the agreement of this question in the future. If we look at pages 5 through 8, those display a list of district staff and outside organizations they belong to. The district believes having employees involved in these organizations strengthens the leadership of both the employee and the district. There is also a brief narrative of some of the staff and organizations where Littleton staff are serving in leadership roles. We take a look at page 9. It outlines the strategies and programs the district uses to support culture, leadership and culture. The district utilizes programs like 21 Keys to High Performance, the Lifestyles Inventory Guide created by Pacific Institute, and this year added the Cultural Blueprint. This tool was used by the governing board and the executive leadership team during the study session at Westmark. The LSI Lifestyles Inventory diagram 1 and 2 on page 9 shows the district's evolution over time. 2009 was the first iteration of this diagram and measures the leadership styles represented in the district. The goal of the LSI guide is to assist the district in identifying leadership styles, both bad and good, and developing strategies on how to leverage the good while reducing the bad. These diagrams assist management in developing strategies to shift leadership styles from defensive, which are green and red, to constructive, which are blue. The blueprint graph, which is in diagram 3, measures similar indicators as the LSI tool as shows opportunities in innovation and proactive, both of which are still above the 50th percentile. If we turn to page 10, it begins with some notable projects or events that happened in the district last year. One of those notable items was our board election, which saw 2 new members to the board, one of which was the youngest ever elected. Page 11 begins management's analysis of revenue, expenses, and student enrollment, both historic and projected. The first chart, labeled competitive grants, provides a snapshot of some of the larger competitive grants the district received last year and what they were used for. The federal programs department did a great job identifying available grants, matching them to the need of the district, and writing a compelling grant proposal to get these awards. In this analysis, we also have a chart that reviews revenue and expenses. Revenues are shown on a line graph labeled total revenue by fiscal year, with some significant happenings in FY23. You might have noticed in FY23 there isn't a bar for county revenue. This is because the Arizona legislature removed the state equalization tax rate, or CETR. Any funds that were received by the district from this funding source will have to be made up by the state general fund moving forward. The chart with the dollar bill depicts the district expenditures by function for FY22, which is the most current information the Arizona Auditor General's Dollar in the Classroom report has. The district spent 53.4% on direct instruction, which is 2.5% higher than peer district average. The groups of student support and instructional support included with instruction account for 69.8% of the spending in this report. If you look further down the chapter on page 15, you will see information about historical enrollment trends and the projections developed by our demographer. The district has seen steady growth since COVID in FY21 and is projected to maintain that steady growth for at least the next decade. This growth is fueled by the high demand of housing in the West Valley and the number of housing developments within our boundaries. Pages 17 and 18 give you a look into some of the projects the district was busy with last year. The district began construction on Lake and Prep, as well as finished up the preschool building on the Littleton's campus. The district also finalized the audio enhancement project, and now each classroom in the district is equipped with audio equipment that ensures every student can clearly hear the teacher no matter where they are sitting. Page 19 through the end of this report is dedicated to the recognition received by the district, staff, and students last year. The district celebrated 2 schools, Quinton and Littleton, for getting the Model PLC School recognition. They are only 2 of only 11 schools in Arizona and 500 nationwide that received this distinction. We were also able to celebrate our communications department for receiving several distinctions and awards during the annual Arizona School Public Relations Association, or ASPRA, award ceremony, and our HR department for their work on the Grow Your Own program for future teachers. We also had individuals like Dr. Durazo celebrated for her distinction of being the Maricopa County Exemplary Principal in FY23. Littleton had so much to celebrate with our students also, whether it was a Kid at Hope student being celebrated at the governing board meeting, or a student being highlighted for exceptional performance at the science fair, spelling bee, math challenge, or art show. Of course, this is not an all-inclusive list of our amazing students, and the district strives to find new and unique ways to celebrate all students every day. Madam President, that was my overview of Chapter 6, and happy to answer any questions that you have. At this point, I'd like to hand it back to Dr. Freeman to wrap up.
Madam President, members of the board, I know some of you made notes in the margin, and some of those may not have been included in your comments, but if you could send any of those to Ada, it'd be helpful. We want to go through. I have several notes in the margin of mine. I think, like happens most of the time when people put together a big project, once you put it out on paper and put it up on the screen, you see things you didn't see before, margins that are a little off, numbers that are missing, and those kind of things. So it is our intent to clean up this version before it becomes printable and distributable to the community. The other thing that we want to try to do between now and the November meeting is put together a summary. In the past, we've done a 11 by 17 two-sided summary that could be mailed out, and if the board thought that was a good format, we've done others that are folded, and we're constantly picking up examples from other organizations of ways to report summary material to the community on how we've been doing. So we're going to go through a little dress up, clean up, and some final editing on this and put together a summary for the next meeting. Any input people have would be appreciated, so it comes out clean, accurate, and something that people can have pride in from the school district. I glossed over the acknowledgments when I started and going through the chapters and then into the introduction. So I think it's important for the board to recognize all the work of the management team, a lot of directors who pitched in, and the administrative assistants who work with them. Some of them are listed in the acknowledgments. The board secretary, Ms. Sillis, is like the team captain for getting everybody's stuff together in a final version, in a binder for you. And none of this would have been ready without her hard work. So just recognizing how many people played a part in producing, assembling, and getting this ready for you. And I feel a little remiss in not touching on it at the beginning, so I want to be sure to do that before we go on to the board's goals. Are there any questions about the process or what's going to happen next, or?
Well, yeah, Dr. Freeman, I just want to echo what you said towards the end. I'm a new board member, and I think this report was amazing. I mean, there's not really much. I think I have input, just questions on the data, but I think a lot of it was amazing. I just think something was going through my mind when we were talking about test scores with middle schoolers being lower. I think looking back to our suspension data, that middle schoolers are more likely to be suspended at a higher rate, and I just could like to see if maybe we could possibly in the near future get data on like how does more middle schoolers being suspended. I know our average is 2.4 days. Could that play into effect of students falling behind in class and then further not being able to do better on state assessments or district assessments? So thank you all. Amazing work.
And I also will just, on behalf of the board, I'm sure, want to thank everyone for all of your work. Many times we don't take time to say that or recognize it, but we do appreciate it. It takes a lot to put something like this together. It takes days, months, collecting, then researching, then checking again. So thank you very much. I won't name everyone, there's too many, but know that it does come from the board. We are grateful for it. And Ada, there's not much. We probably have not told you how much we appreciate you for keeping us on track and providing us all the information. So thank you very much as well.
So, Madam President, the next item in the meeting is the part where we tie the administrative part of the governance cycle and the governance team together. When we spoke about this last, the board said they wanted to kind of match up with the calendar we were on. So what we're anticipating is you can have a discussion about the 4 goals that you have, and then we also have the 14 district goals. Our idea of the calendar going forward is it's been 2 years since you did your self-assessment, and we have 2 new members of the board. I think that's an online tool that we would get you links and passwords for. So considering between now and winter break, if the board were to do their self-assessment between now and the next meeting, and then we would give you the superintendent evaluation form after the next meeting, so you could put your comments on there, get them back to Ada for the December meeting. Then we would have all that data when we get back from winter break to figure out what priorities are going to be and changes might be. So that discussion is, your goal data, I think, is in the item. And so the first is the district's annual goals and then board member goals. So if any of those 14 need to be revised or updated, I think it's been a couple of years since any changes were made. And that's the 6 chapters and 14 goals that you just went through.
Did you have anything else, comment, questions on that?
No, Madam President, it's just an opportunity for, if the board wants to change any of these goals, it's going to impact resources and planning and everything after winter break. So if anything should need to be modified, amended, extended, we would take that into consideration when we start putting together recommendations for fiscal '25. We don't want to wait till March to change the goals.
Right. So if there is changes, you're recommending we send them to Ada for review, or what are you?
Madam President, members of the boards, the 14 goals have been adopted. So people could have discussion about changes they want to make. They could send them to the board secretary to be placed on an agenda at a future time.
Okay.
If that's the way, I mean, they're your goals, so however you want to do it.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I had clear direction. Yes.
I can definitely go more in depth. I have been looking at these goals, and while I value all 14 of them, I feel like 14 is a lot. And it's hard for me to combine them or say that one goal is not as important as the other 13 of them. I would be, I guess, happy to see if we could find a way to combine them or get what we truly want in a simpler wording or something like that. Because I just feel like 14 is significant, and I don't truly feel like I'm focused on anything when I have 14 goals. That's just kind of my input. But I also know that it's really hard to do because I've been trying to do it for about a week now and I can't figure it out. So
I know I've looked at these before too, and I feel the same way because I think each of them are equally important, and I don't really want to eliminate one or the other, but it is a lot. 14 is a lot of goals, but they are just all very important. So I'm just repeating everything that Amy said. So
I know I shaking my head too because I've gone to some professional development trainings, and I sat down with other school districts and showed them our 14 goals, and they scratched their head, and you said you guys have 14 goals, which because I think I learned that a highly efficient organization has, I believe, 2 to 3 major goals, and then they based off like subtitles or underlines of those 2 or 3 major goals. So yeah.
So it is overwhelming, there's no question. This isn't the first time this topic has come up. It comes up every time we review them. And if there is suggestions how to, I do agree 3 to 5 maybe, and then subtitles under them. But again, trying to figure out that main title and subtitle under it is not easy. I don't know if we want to all go back, give it a scratch and try it, and then send it into Ada, and then see if there's some commonality in it, and then come back and see if there's something that we could work together to get a little bit more concrete. But our timeline would be by...
Madam President, members of the board, I think if January and February, we're going to make revisions that would impact allocation of resources. Because the whole time I've been here, Ms. Reyes has been on the board and was here when these were written. The topic comes up a lot, and then when it's which one of these do you want to pick to throw out, it gets like choosing your favorite child a little bit. And so to member Sinceros's point is what a lot of districts do who use this format is the board picks 2 or 3 things to emphasize in the coming year. And so what happens is the staff may back off of the tracking and resource work that they're doing, so the team, the implementation team, can focus on 2 or 3 things that are priorities of the board. We had that conversation before too, and then as it got going, boards were like, everything's a priority. So it is difficult to give some things up, but I would tell you that 2 or 3 focuses with really more laser-like attention to that does generally create improvement in those areas. We have in the past run math goals and our reading scores went down, so we run a reading goal and the math scores go down, and it is a challenge when you're under-resourced to do that, and I think a lot of that other leadership material that you see written is where people really have more control of their resources and what they're going to do with their business and those things than public schools in Arizona have. So I would proceed with caution, but that is another strategy, is instead of omitting a goal, prioritizing a goal.
So with that, if the board wants to go back and try to pick 3 to 5 or whatever you feel is adequate, subtitle them, and then we can send them to Ada. She can format them all and put them in, and we can come back and see if there's commonalities and just figure out where we go. I will mimic, anytime we've tried to do it, reading scores go down, and then you go, why? And what was the measurement? Well, we didn't focus on it, or why was math? And so keep that in mind as you're doing it, because the laser focus becomes the laser focus, and while you're not focusing on other things, it can really become a challenge, especially short-staffed, and a lot of other dynamics go into it. So could we have these back to you, like not the next board meeting, because that, for December, is that okay? Amy, December work for you?
Oh, December's fine. I just know myself, I'm gonna have to tell myself it's 2 weeks, because I won't get it done if we say it's December.
Me too, I'm not hearing, I'm just knowing that I can't have it done by the next board meeting, but I will have it done by that one after that. All right, so.
I think we have a part B too, so you might have one at 2 weeks and one at 4. If-
Well,
As far as your,
me, it's gonna have to be like done this weekend, or I won't do it. I know myself.
all right, well, whatever the board president says then.
No, I mean, I want to give everybody, I know we all have other lives, and we're busy, and we have full-time jobs, so I can't commit to more than I know I would do. So for me, and not next board meeting, but the next board meeting, I think gives time.
We'll take her work early.
Yeah, if anybody can send it early, that's great. And, Dr. Freeman, I'd like you and your team also to see what you could come up with. If you could work together and take a look at, if you could identify, top 3, and you understand laser focusing because you run this more than maybe I do, that would be very helpful. And so if you could get with your team, figure out what your ideal world would look like, because those are your goals. That's, how we grade, if you will, or look at your performance is based on those. So it does have some impact on you and your team. So that would be great. And you cannot do it next board meeting, but you have to have it done by the next board meeting too. Is that fair?
December.
Yes, sir.
I've got to put this on the agenda. in December.
Okay, perfect. Is that okay with everyone? Any problem with, okay, so that is what we'll do and move forward. Oh, yeah, the president, board member annual goals discussion. So,
We have 4 goals.
yes. So again, I don't know if every,
If you would scroll down, Jim. I think
yeah, it'd be nice
the
to,
data is-
yeah. Yeah, that's them. And Amy, you had a comment, question?
Just looking at this, I guess it's more of a follow-up to a previous conversation we've had. We had a conversation about board members going to other school sites and having the principals or administration tell us what events they would like us to come to, or they would, and maybe I have missed it. Do we get a list of like what events are going on at other schools that the administration would like us to come to? Because I thought I left that meeting thinking that's what would happen. Right. I freely could have missed something, so. That's
Oh,
okay.
the question, if I could rephrase, was when we had talked before, the goal was to get the board members more out to the schools, and because of that, we needed someone to tell us, like, you're having a boo treat, and you're having this over here, and then we would each pick what we could go to. Did we get that
What I remember,
information?
there were 2 things that we agreed to do, and some of them are in your calendar, and some of them are in your update.
And that's my question. Are the events that are listed in my calendar, not my calendar, but like upcoming events in the board update, are the events listed there, are those the events that administration is asking board members to come to, or are those just, hey, this is what's going on?
Madam President and board members, yes, those are the events that we list that you are welcome to go, but not anything in particular that you were invited to support. There are some events that the administration asked us if the board members could come, and I send you calendar invites for those.
Can I also add, from my understanding, when we usually have our regular meetings, I believe it's usually under our update. Yep. Isn't there usually is all the schools have their flyers in there, and then there is, this is what I do, I go in there, and then each school has a list of all their individual events, and then I just put it on my own separate calendar. But I don't know if
See,
that
and
usually in there.
I have seen that, but I also, in previous years, I have just randomly shown up at events that were listed there. And I felt like the administration suddenly got very anxious that I was there because they weren't ready for me to be there. That sounds weird, I know, but I've had administrators kind of be like, oh, I didn't know you were here, and then they seem to be busying around, and I don't want to ever make anyone feel that way. So that's why I was kind of curious to, if it's listed there, then the administrators know that there could be a board member coming, then that's fine. I just don't want to.
If people
Yeah.
would accept calendar invites, then we could tell
I
them.
don't get it. Miss Ada and I have gone back and forth many times about calendar invites, and I've stopped getting them. So I don't know. Like, and it's probably Google's fault. I'm not saying it's Ada's fault because she does amazing.
So that's something for us to work on. Yeah, okay.
Well, and half the time, my setup in my phone, I'm offline again. So I don't even look at it anymore. I just don't mess with this. I've been offline 3 times. I've been here, they've fixed it. I just don't do it anymore. I'm very much like Ms. Contreras. My life is kind of crazy right now, and it's easier for me to check my work email, and that's where I accept off of, because I'm looking at it every day. And so it could very well be my fault too, but she's pretty good about sending me things knowing that.
Well, and everybody's up their security, digital security.
Well, that's
is
the other
crazy.
problem. It blanks it out. I can't see it. And so, yeah, maybe it's just a refresher conversation that I do definitely think one of the board goals should be to get out more and be more known. The question is, how do you do it, and what, that's kind of what we're talking about. How do we know, and again, I don't want to show up anywhere and, look like I'm trying to do anything more than just have a conversation. I'm not doing that. So whatever, maybe the calendar invites and we pay more attention to them is workable.
Yeah, I think it would make sense if, depending on what you want to do with that goal, which is your goal number 4 is school events. If we can work on the communication commitment piece a little bit to refine the issues the board is having, to help make you, more aware in a timely fashion, to help facilitate that goal. You were at 80 to 90%, depending on how we chunked off the data by member or by quarter. So that's not a bad number. 75% for special meetings and 80 to 90% per quarter. I think if you really wanted to make an impact, you might increase, 2 per quarter is 8. I don't know, especially like this time of year, things get really crazy busy and it's hard to be out there. So if you wanted to leave it at 2 and just try to, we can do a better job of communicating. Once we get to 100, we can look at 4. But I think that, I think it is a good point is to, try to close the communication loop better, but we'll need.
Well, and I don't think I'm always good about saying, oh, I went here. I just don't do that, right? I don't go, oh, I attended this. I don't.
Yeah, that's noted that's noted here is that we think it might actually be higher if the reporting was better.
Yeah,
and,
that's my fault. I don't always go, oh, guess
well,
what,
I
I went
know
here.
about you because you talk to me about where you've been and then it's not in the data.
I know.
So I know it's true in one case and probably more because your kids are at that school. I know you go there as well and you're not reporting it. That would help your data probably a lot.
So that's on us. We need to get better at that.
I always go through my calendar 15 minutes before the meeting going, what did I do this month?
Well, you're better than I am, so that's a good thing. All right, well.
But I do agree that we do need to do the biannual self-evaluation because I think it is time with our 2 new members.
Yeah. We haven't done that.
We'll get a link out to you then.
Yeah, and again, it doesn't really belong here, but it kind of goes in for where we wanted to have a little bit more, what's the right word? we want to highlight teachers and stuff, but we also want to highlight how we can assist and help teachers. We had kind of talked about that. So that's all kind of tied into that last goal somewhere, and somehow getting more involved in getting, supporting whatever support we can give, so.
Keep trying to get us math teachers in middle school.
Yes, I did try. She just wouldn't come. They wouldn't come. They wanted high school. I was there recruiting, though, in the middle of Avondale City Hall. It's like, what? All right, is there anything else? I think that's the last item. So is there anything else from the board? If not,
oh,
I'm
sorry.
Go ahead.
I think this was amazing, that discussion. And I think I'm happy for us to be meeting or even reaching near our goals. But I didn't even know we had a biannual self-evaluation. So I think I'm looking forward to the coffee or the process of it.
It's the
Yeah.
school board's instrument.
Oh, school board answer. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
All right, anything else? All right, with that, I'll call for a motion for adjournment.
I move that we adjourn at 7:47.
I'll second that.
Thank you. I have a first and second. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion will pass, and we are adjourning at 7:47.
All right.